Howdy folks, my name's Darren from Master Scale Models, and today I'm back with you with another kit. Brand new tooled, brand new kit from Airfix, 124 scale Supermarine Spitfire. I have had this kit for about 3 days now. I have only just got this small amount of chance to do this video because I've been really busy this week. So let's take a look what we get inside this box. So what's inside this box is a very smaller box than I thought, compared to the original 124, which was a big box. But this is smaller, but it's a hell of a lot deeper. So we do get this side of the box, some of the images, CAD work, some of the information. This one thing I did notice, we have got cartograph decals, which is a nice touch. Airfix do a lot of cartograph work. On this side of the box is information, history of the aircraft. We have the 5 schemes. We have RF ones, we have a American version, French. A lot of people are talking about the French one is quite colourful and stuff. But this one here, I do know that you can do it 3 different ways, and I will talk about that when we get to it. So technically there would be 5, 6, 7, there should be 8 schemes technically, but there's 5. But I will explain that when I get to it. Skill level 4. 4 flying hours, a bit stingy I think, especially for a large kit in this scale. One thing I will talk about quickly is the kit's being made in the UK. It was tooled in the UK. Everything was done in the UK, not its usual places like India or whatever. So the kit's going to be a limited run. So just be that in mind if you are thinking of getting it. You will have to wait maybe a little bit because the numbers are not quite up there. So hopefully the tooling is going to be nice and clean and crisp. Hopefully it's done on. It's going to be nice, hopefully, because it's done in England, and the costs can be kept down a little bit because of it being done over here. As I say, there's paints as well. It's still factory sealed. I haven't looked into this yet. One thing I have noticed: the back of the box is embossed. Wasn't necessary, but it's a nice touch that the box has got a 3D. Thing in the back. So there's one tab there, there's none there, there's a tab on this side and nothing on that side, so should be good to go now. Nice sturdy boxes as always from Airfix. Come on. Right, that's what I wasn't expecting straight off the bat. Parts are not in bags. I don't know if that's a new thing they're doing or what they're doing, but first part we see straight off the bottom is the sprue, and this sprue is very soft, very flexible. That's different, but the detail is nicely done though, so we will get to that. Let's find the instructions because I want to go through that as well. Here's the upper wings. Part of the cowling as well, pretty cool. So here's some of the paperwork. We have some of the markings, quite a large sheet. As I say, it's cartograph, so you know it's going to be nice and crisp and clean. Now on semi-gloss side, so we have the squares for the guns. These are all your stencil data. We have instrument panel markings separately, which is nice stuff. Big roundels, maple leaf in 2 different colours, because they're not quite sure, possibly, or differences in the aircraft. The rest of these insignias and roundels, there's the American symbols, the French ones, which has the massive tail marking, the seagulls. We have a Popeye, pretty cool. So yeah, the carrier film though as well is non-existent, is really close. Even on the letters there's no carrier film in between, they're all basically individual letters, so these should go down really nicely. Normally with letters are back to back, there's normally a carrier film in between them, but because this is such a large scale they've managed to do it without. Even in the B's, these are normally filled in with carrier film, but these are completely hollow as well. So yeah, you can see the carrier film on this where it's one big letter, but other than that, the rest of it's all separate. Yeah, that is very nicely done. Very sharp and clean and crisp. This booklet is substantial. It's very, very thick. There's a lot of steps. We are looking at 143 steps. So it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy video because of this is a large manual to go through quickly, and I'll try and get through it as quickly as possible, and then the kit as well. So typical Airfix's manual, history, length of the aircraft and stuff in real scale terms. There are some of the colour callouts, so we need to pull them out. There's 3 of those. More history. This is new, never seen this before, Airfix. This is the colours that they use. This is the humble range, so it's nicely they've done that now, so you know what colours you need. The silvers, the reds, the browns, the greens, azure blue for the American version. So that's nicely done. Symbols to pay attention to, which is always the same, and then we have the reds sections, which is your previous step, and go through. Very first part is the cockpit. So this is your instrument panel. You've got all your decals for that, nicely done. Detail parts to be put in the cockpit, parts to be aware of, and there's some differences on the side of the cockpit. Looks like decals that go around the oxygen bottles. The oxygen bottle is behind the pilot, so you're never going to see that, but it's nice they've done it. So here's the very first step. As always, it's pretty much standard, even with 48 scale and stuff like that. It's the cockpit seat in several parts, painting as you go along. The back of the seat and supports, bulkheads, or for the seat belts are moulded in plastic, strangely. I don't really think that's going to be a nice fit. They're going to be probably a little bit too thick. I do know there are HGW, they're doing a set of seat belts for this, but I think it's for the old Spitfire, but it's still going to work for this because there isn't going to be much in it. So those HGW seat belts is a worthy upgrade, I think. There are a couple of parts out there for this, but again, I think it's for the older Spitfire, not this one. There's some wheels. Kitworld have made a instrument panel for it, but I think it's for the older version. I don't think it's for this. Plus there's several marking options out there as well, so you don't have to do these ones in the kit. There are other schemes available, but this is all the basically the seat assembly, as you can see. And then the side of the cockpit, nope, sorry, make my mistake, this is the cockpit floor and the lower part of the fuselage, structural parts inside, and this is the sidewall of the cockpit, nice detail parts going in. Then the instrument panel, it's got the clear parts being attached by looks of things, and the instrument panel is 2 parts that can be dropped in, and then your side of the wall and the floor can be put together. More detailed parts as you work way along. Pedals, I'm not sure what that is, but this is the bulkhead as well. More bulkheads and the seat going in, more bulkheads. More instructional parts inside. There's some more of those seat belts that are plastic. Again, I think that's going to be horrible. Your flight stick can be put in. There's those oxygen bottles. Back half of the aircraft behind the pilot is aluminum, and the front half, cockpit area, is the RF grey-green colour. More levers, more structural parts, and then this is the other side of the cockpit, more details, and then once it's done you can sandwich it all together. And then next section we're using on the fuselage halves, we've got part of the back of the tail being put in. They've done different cutouts, possibly there's different variants coming out. This part here you need to remove if need be, if you're having the door open and stuff. If you're not, then go to do not glue in N4 part, which is this piece. I think it's like an armour plate as well, possibly. Different variants as you work your way along, just to be aware of. So version A, D and E has this option. A, D and E has this option, and then B and C version has this slight option. So there's a couple of differences inside the cockpit you just have to be careful of. And then this can be sandwiched to that. Make sure the alignment is all nice and straight. There's another detail part inside the cockpit. We have plumbing being all fitted. That is probably the oxygen cable. Again, we've got some more detail parts at the inside. It's for AD and E version only, so just be careful with that. We have this box. I'm not sure what that box is for. It's definitely in the bulkhead and it's inside. Because it's here. I don't know what that is. Batteries, radios, I don't know. Then we have the back part of where the small tail wheel goes into, so that's undercarriage parts at the back. And then this is your canopy options, open or closed, and with the door open as well. Again, you've got your handles and your crowbar. A lot of people make this crowbar red. Yes, aircraft flying around today, the crowbar is red. It has to be because it's safety features. But wartime, it would have been the grey-green colour or silver. So just be aware of that if you want to make it accurate. Again, this is the option for the door open or closed. Another bulkhead and some detail parts inside. Front bulkhead going in. And we have tail planes. Again, slight different variants I think there is, and you can have them posable and that kind of thing, which is all nicely done. They are typical two halves being sandwiched together. That's no surprise there. The rudder being fitted. Again, a couple of detail parts. You possibly can have them at an angle as well. Then it goes to the lower wing section. Wing spar, all nicely strengthened and detailed. Up here we have more detail parts being put into the wings, more wing spars and wheel wells being assembled. This is the other side. Note here, using part F3 and is not being used. If you're not going to glue it in, result to step 65 on page 15, so that's basically having the undercarriage closed, I imagine. This is the wheelway assembly if you're having it all open. I'm going to have it all on its gear, all the engines opened. I'm going to have the full works on this one. More wing spars. This looks like ammo sections for the ammo. More wing spars. That's all being fitted. That's going to make the wing nice and structural, especially after realising the wing is really flexible, so that's a nice touch to make it nice and sturdy. It's definitely going to need them spars. We have plumbing inside, more wing spars and detail parts. Repeating the process on the other side, so it's the left and right, which is probably standard anyway. Now option A, D and E is different to B and C version. There's a couple of differences at the back. These are look like some of the Browning machine guns going in. Note, only fit when building the gun bays open. So this part is for the gun bay only when it's open. This is probably some of the mechanical fittings for the ammo. Here are the Browning machine guns. Again, this is for the option only. This is open version only, so this is left and this is right. If you're having it closed up, basically you skip all of this. Attaching your lower wing to your upper fuselage half. That's pretty standard. Upper wing sections now. These are all cutouts for all your ammunition and guns and stuff like that. Again, if you're having it open, you leave them as is and just put these on the floor, but don't forget to paint them. Easy way of getting these painted is the same and weathered is the same as the aircraft. Blue tack these into place. Do all your painting and weathering as normal. Just pop these off carefully and then they should all look the same. The underside has got a slight different bulge in the wing. It's to do with the guns. Here we have the radiator system. This can be open and closed options again. This is all nicely done. I don't know if there's any aftermarket out there for this in photo etch, and Eddard will probably come on board with all of this and detail up. I don't think there's no photo etch in this kit at all. And then a couple more detail parts on the underside. Again, open or closed options and stuff. This is your radiator assembly, and now your wing tips. The conventional wings, or the clip wing version. Clip wing version is in clear. I can understand why they've done that, because the end tips are the lights, left and right sides. Just be wary. E version is clip wing, which is the French, and then the rest of them are normal markings. And now this is engine detail. If you're having the engine open, build the very first steps up until here, and that's the cowling closed. Anything after that is engine open, and it states up here parts are needed and what's not needed. So we've got the lower wing section, the lower engines, nice detail parts. I couldn't tell you what none of this is, I'm not an expert, but we have the structural parts of the engine that holds the engine in place, the bracing, which is all nicely done. Just like turbos, would it be a turbo? I'm not sure. This looks like maybe a carburetor. I'm not sure. I have to check my references and read up on it and make sure everything what everything is, because I'm not 100% sure. This looks like a intake of some sort. Here we have more cowlings. So we have the inner and outer cowling section, which is nicely done. The upper cowling, which is moulded in one part, which is nicely done, because a lot of manufacturers will do this in two halves, and you get a nasty seam straight down the centre cowling, and it's a pain to try and clean up. But now this is a top fit, it's going to fit nicely. Good on Airfix, I do like that. But sadly, the under cowling they've done as two halves, so you're going to have a seam line, which is a bit of a bummer. That's going to be a bit of a pain to clean up. They've done the top one correct, but not so much on the bottom one. That's one of the features I didn't like. But once that's done, again, this is still part of the closed cowling section, because you've only got half of engine. So this is the full cowling, you just slot it over. If you're having the full engine and having these cowlings separately on the floor and open, ignore what you've just saw here down the bottom. Just carry on building the rest of the engine. So it looks like the top of the engine, the rocker covers, whatever the top of the engine is and stuff. Nice Merlin engine. Continue building the Merlin. We have more parts of the engine, front parts of the engine. This down here, I don't know, it's part of the engine, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what that is neither, but it is nicely detailed. Just maybe the carburetor, I don't know, but this is all the engine parts. This is all for the engine open option. We have plumbing as you work your way along. These look like the spark plug wires, if I think. And then, so here we have more detail parts on the bulkhead, and a couple more detail parts here, I don't know what they are. But then, once they're all attached, this is for the engine to be in the open position so it's visible. Attaching the braces for the engine here and here. A couple of more plumbing as you work your way along. This is going to look impressive, especially the engine. It's very nicely done. I don't think you're going to need to add any extra wiring. I think everything is there in the kit to do it all. This is all more wiring, plumbing, etc. And once that's done, you can nicely drop your engine in, so you can paint this separately. If you're not having the engine inside the aircraft, you could probably get away with making this separate as a separate build, but it all depends. So you can build this engine, paint it, weather it, and then a couple of glue tabs on these ends, and then it should just drop in. And then more detail parts on top, more plumbing. Now we have the lower section of the engine. Again, I don't know what this is. I'm gonna have to read up on it. This is the front of the plate. This is more of those wing spars, strengthening wing spars. A couple of detail parts over the top. Here's that radiator system again that we saw earlier. Now this is the cowling again. Again, if you want all of this visible, you can just make this and just leave it on the floor, because these are basically panels that do come off. That's what these tabs are on the end. They're like big screws. These options are for the open version of the cowling, but if you want it all buttoned up, resolved in the previous steps. So that's nicely done. Exhaust tips are individual, which is nicely done. May have to drill them out a little bit more because they might be not sufficient for you. And then flaps in a down position. Yep, and then more rudders and flaps. Machine guns or cannons. This is a bit of a shame as well because they're in 2 halves, so that's going to take some clean up. Hopefully Master Barrel comes out with some turned brass ones of these. That would be a nice upgrade as well, so we have to wait for those possibly. This is what I do like. The wheels are separately, so the insert of the wheel is separate to the tyre, so you can paint the tyre and then do your inserts of silver and then pop them all in together. Nicely done. Landing gear segments. The main landing gear spar is probably going to need a little bit of a wiring. Some of the hydraulic lines. That's probably the only scratch building you probably need to do for that. This is your landing gear in the down position. Again, it's inserts are separate to the wheels. This is the landing gear in the down position, making sure you got that V shape of the landing gear, because the landing gear is not dead straight, it does sit at a weird angle. Landing gear doors. This is still the open option. This is for your tail wheel to go into for flight and on the ground, because that doesn't get folded away, that's always down. Pitot tubes, aerials, lights, more detailed parts as you work way along. Now this is the canopy opened or closed option. There is some differences within the canopy. And the last part is putting on the prop. Several parts for the prop, propellers, assembly and the nose cone. You can paint all of this separately and just put it together. So that's a nice touch, and it should be the finished model by then. And it goes on the paint markings. So stencil data for all aircraft. There isn't a ton of stencil data for the Spitfire. Just imagine this being a F4 Phantom. There'll be fucking millions of stencils for this. So nice French markings. You do note on the French markings we do have overpainted roundels to get that desired circle in what size it would be. The Airfix are giving you the template for that. So this is nicely done. So this is dark green over ocean grey. Underside looks like a light medium sea grey. Red spinner, yellow tail, pretty cool. Now this option here is aircraft AEB, English, Royal Air Force, 1943. Pretty standard markings. We have the dark green over ocean grey with the medium sea grey bottom. So this is late war colours. Early war colours was the brown and green. This is the late war colours. Now this one here is aircraft 5JK, but this one you have 3 options how to do this one. You can do this one with the D-Day stripes or invasion stripes. You could do the aircraft with no stripes, so that would have been 44 June. Nope, sorry, my mistake. My mistake. So D-Day stripes or invasion stripes would have been June 44 going into December. After that they removed the stripes to only half stripes in July, and then before that, even before D-Day, it was no stripes at all, which you see here and here. So there would have been no stripes at all. So there is basically 3 ways of doing it. And we have seen that one. And this one here is a famous aircraft. This is JEJ, Eddie Johnny Johnson's aircraft, and his aircraft was personalised with JEG on the side for James Eddie Johnson. So nicely done. So you can do his markings. Again, this is the brown over the grey and light grey option, and then you can do desert version. Again, in American markings, this is dark earth, midstone, sand, azure blue colour. Again, it has the over painted roundels. They give you the stencil templates for that. The red spinner. Pretty cool markings. There is an RAF version in midstone, but you have to get the aftermarket decals for that. Now let's take a look at the kit. So no further ado, here is the upper wing spar, lower wing spar. Again, I did mention when I first saw it in the box, it's really soft and plastic, but lucky enough they're giving you all these structural wings spars to stiffen it up, but it is very, very soft. Nicely done with these tabs, so you can actually see what ones you're looking at, but the detail is very nicely clean and crisp, apart from it being a very soft plastic. So be careful with your glue, because it probably could eat through it, especially Tamir's extra thin cement can attack this quite easily, so you don't want to use too much because you could put a hole in it and mess the plastic up. But as for surface detail, nicely done with the rivets. They all look pretty good. I am not going to be a rivet counter and count to make sure they're all there and in the right places. I'm not sad like that. But the plastic also has this ripply effect all over it, which is going to mimic the skin effect, which is nicely done. I do like that. There's ejector pins on the inside. You're not going to see any of those because obviously the majority of it's all closed up, apart from segments on the ends here is where your guns are and stuff, but that's nicely done. Second part in no bag is the upper wing section. So this is all of your guns to be visible, your giant wing spar. Again, it's very soft, and this is spruce C. So again, nice, same detail as before. It's going to take a nice wash, nice weathering, oils. It's going to come out as an impressive aircraft. And your giant wing spar. These smaller tabs you need to remove. That's how they get it out the mould. Again, ejector pins, you won't see none of those. I'm hoping there's no ejector pins on the inside of the doors, because otherwise if there is, you're going to have to take care of them. There are a couple inside, I've noticed, of the flaps though, you will have to take care of. And the last two parts with no bags is the actual fuselage halves. For 124 scale Spitfire, it's not a big aircraft. Even in 124, you expect it to be like, massive, but it's not. So nicely done. You can see this is all raised, because it is basically behind here would be the fuel tank, and it's raised like it would be. Even down to some of those screw heads, they're not perfect by any standards because I've just done them with little holes, but they're pretty good. This is the door, having it open or closed options. If you want to convert this or into a reconnaissance aircraft, you're going to have to cut this door out, put a clear part in and a camera. I don't know if Airfix will probably do that themselves, but if you are thinking of converting this Spitfire into a different form, you will have to modify it. This is part of the tail. This is cut out separately, so no doubt there's different variances out there for some reason. And you notice the front part of the nose is done separately. That's the hells for different noses, propellers probably, the engine options. So that's how they've done it, so they can make different variants down the line. Again, this is all raised from the fuselage like it would be, and the panel lines and rivets are just nicely done like they are before on the wings. You will have the centre spine to take care of, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Inside detail, a couple of ejector pins to take care of here, here and here, but the rest of it looks pretty good. From here onwards is aluminium, from here this way is the grey-green colour. So nicely done. And the last piece I do like is that upper cowling. They've moulded as one part, so you don't have a nasty seam through the middle. But sadly, they've done it with the bottom one as two halves. So you're going to have to be a little bit of sanding, which I wish they didn't. If you're going to have this as a removable part, which is possible, you may want to take care of these pins as well. But this is nicely done. Again, those circles are meant to mimic those giant screw heads, which is a bit of a shame. Now we have the bag of clear. So we have the clear parts. Here is one of the canopies. There is two types. They did state in the instructions as well. One of them has got a slight seam line. This one here, which is the more accurate shaped bulge in the canopy, has a slight seam. The one with the less bulge doesn't. So if you're worried about the seam, then obviously you do this one, but it's not so accurate. They did mention that. And if you want more accuracy, in this one you've got the centre seam, but you're never going to get that perfect bulge without that seam. It's such a fine seam, you could probably get away with just leaving it as is, but if you want to try and buff it out, feel free. I haven't managed to work that out yet, and I haven't tested to try and clean up a canopy, and I'm scared of screwing it up, and I haven't got any spares to try and test it out on, so I'll probably just leave it as is. If the canopy is open and your eye's not going to be drawn to the canopy anyway, it's just going to be drawn to the cockpit, so I wouldn't worry about too much. Here is the front of the glass. This is another window. This glass is okay, but it's not perfect compared to the Anson. The Anson was really clear, crystal clear. This is a little bit off. I can't see any ghosting like there was on the Anson, because the Anson did have nice clear parts, but there was a couple of ghost seams where the plastic met in between. But this looks, it is good, but it's not perfect. I have seen better from Airfix, but it is still good. I have a little bit of buffing on top of my canopy. There's only probably where it's been in the bag. That's not a problem. I can clean that up. Here are your instrument panels. Bit of an old school technique doing it that way. I'm hoping Quinta was going to do a set for this, but I have contacted Quinta and asked them, are you doing any upgrades for this? And they said no. They're not going to do anything for this aircraft at this time. Here are your wingtips, lights, gun sights. So that's nicely done, Airfix. Let me pop this back in there because I don't want to mess these clear parts up anymore. In this large bag we've got two pieces of sprue. So we have this very large sprue. These are your wing spars. We have the Browning machine guns. Moulded as one part, but sadly the ends are not drilled out, so you're going to have to do that. But as I say, I'm hoping Master Barrel brings out a brass set for this. This is more detailed parts, supports, some more of your Browning machine guns, more wing spars. These are ammunition belts, these sit inside here, more wing supports. So here are those wing supports, nicely done, different shapes and sizes. It's required. Here are part of your Browning machine guns. they are nicely done, but I just want the metal barrels for this. So I'm going to wait on building this. I'm not going to build this just yet. I'm going to wait for the aftermarket guys to bring out the stuff for this to spruce it up even more, because it's going to need it to make it nicely done, especially if you're having it all open. You're going to want the best you can get for it. Here's more plumbing, detail parts inside, more of those wing spars. Here are the ammunition chutes, or the ammunition part of it anyway, which would be visible. So that's nicely done. Now this large sprue here is all your tailplanes and your flaps, wingtips. The cannons again are on the end here. Again, they're 2 halves. Again, turned brass ones are going to be nice, much nicer. So this is what you do get for cannons, but sadly there are 2 parts. These are doors for the ammunition chutes. Here's one of those boxes which I weren't too sure about. Here are your wingtips, no standard wingtips. Flaps, wing bulges, more tailplanes. These ones are 2-piece. More the wing bulge or flaps. Here's one of those doors again. So this sprue from here this way and this sprue this way is practically mirrored almost. More wingtips and the rest of your guns. Such a large sprue. Can't really get it all in frame. Another bag here. So we have 3 sprues attached to this one. This one very large sprue again has a lot of detail parts of hull here, oxygen tanks. This is all cockpit detail. There's those seat belts, internals, parts of your bulkhead of your seat. This is cockpit floor and the bottom of the aircraft. These are bulkheads. This is your instrument panels, more bulkheads. Side walls of the cockpit. These sides where the ejector pins are, you ain't got to worry about them because they're facing against the inside. So here is the flight stick. There's those moulded in seat belts. They don't look very nice at all, not in plastic anyway. The HGW belts are going to be a worthy upgrade. Here's the internal parts, plumbing, internals, all of this is internals. There's those oxygen bottles. Here is your cockpit floor, bulkhead. You've got instrument panel to go in front of this. If you want to attach wires to the back of this, you can do. If you're going to see them, that is. All depends. Bulkheads. I'm pretty sure on the real aircraft, I'm not sure if these holes are drilled out. I'm just going to have to check my references. If they are, you're going to have to drill these holes out. I don't think they're stamped like that. I think they are drilled out. Another bulkhead. Another bulkhead. The size of the seats. Here is the plumbing. I think this is for the oxygen tube. Another part of the seat which has the leather backing, which gets painted in brown or black. This is sprue D, so these are nicely done parts. Again, the plastic is still soft all the way through, so just bear that in mind. We have 3 sprues here attached as one, so we have E, and then we have N, and we have J. So this sprue here has another bulkhead, a couple of detail parts, side panels. Not sure what this is. And then we have more cannons. These are your doors, and again it doesn't have the crowbar and stuff on it. That's separate. Again, like I mentioned before, red ones is for today, for safety. Wartime was either silver metal colour or the interior green colour. Now we have the landing gear doors. These are your landing gear legs, separate wheels. You get different types actually. That's a nice touch, and then your wheels are separate. So normally I'm not a fan of two-piece wheels, but these will work more than fine. There is weight on wheels slightly. So here are the doors and parts of your legs. Now these are your closed and spoked wheel versions. You have 4-spoke and 5-spoke inner wheel sections. Here are your small wheels at the back. They are weighted on wheels as well, and then your main tyres. And can I focus it? And they are branded. So nicely done. Last 2 bags and last 3 sprues. So this one has more tail planes and flaps, and then this is one here. This is one most people are interested in, is the engine detail, especially I am. All of this is all for the engine, this one giant sprue. So everything here should be sufficient to make the engine look nice as it is. All your plumbing and stuff should be all there. Should no need to add anything. So down here we have plumbing, so just be careful taking this off the sprue. You want to be taking them off carefully without them snapping, especially these fragile plumbing parts, because if they do snap, as thin as the plastic is, you don't want to overdo it with the cement. We have more cables, and these look like the cables for the spark plugs. I'm not sure. This is more plumbing. Here is that framing that houses the engine in place. This is those, I think that they look like turbos, but I'm not sure. And there's more detailed parts. Now this is all of your engine block sections, top and bottom, top of the engine rocker covers, I think they are, and the lower pan. And then these detail parts, I'm not sure. Here's that front of the engine. Again, I'm not 100% sure what that is. I'm going to have to just check my reference book to find out what all the parts are, because I don't know the names of them offhand. Now, there are the exhaust tips, are separate. They've done the tabs on the bottom side, but sadly they've made the tab on the top end, so you're going to have to clean them up as well. Tamiya did the same thing with their 132 Spitfire. I know a lot of people will probably swap them out for resin upgrades. Again, I don't know, they probably will work, but you're going to have to do a lot of cleanup. I wish they wouldn't attach them to the top. More detailed parts here. These tips here to go inside the exhaust tips. So these are separate, that will make it hollow. This is more plumbing. And this is nicely done. This is sprue K. Now this sprue here is sprue H, and this is all your tail planes and flaps. And this is nicely done. The rivet detail is nicely there. These section with these lines are mimicking the wing supports, because the tails, flaps would have been like a fabric at the back of the aircraft. So this is nicely done. It's not overly done, but it is there. And this is all fabric. We have a different tail here and here. This is more pointy, and this is a more rounded version. So you can tell there is different versions out there, or due to be released, there will be. Last bag. So this is the last sprue. This is sprue L, and this contains the lower cowling sections, which again I wasn't a fan of because they've done them as 2 halves. So you have this seam to take care of, and then this seam up to the front you're going to have to take care of. Bit of a bummer. This cowling here though is very smooth. There's not much rivet on this one, but this one has more rivet detail because there is a slight differences in the cowling. You see how far this radiator, this one's further back, this one's way much further forward. So there are some slight differences. I think it's to do with the tropical version, which is the American one, desert one. So there are some differences. This is the framing again for that sits inside this cowling section. These are nicely done with rivets. Again, sadly, a couple of ejector pins you're going to have to take care of. Now these are your wingtips. You've got separate cutouts to go into, which are here. Don't know why they've done that. Here is part of the intake. This is 2 halves. This is the intake, so you have to do some clean up on that as well. Here is part of your assembly for your spinner. Here's your giant nose cone, which is nicely done, and the back of the nose cone. So you can paint this and this separately. This will be the metal colour. Your blade, your blacky grey colour. So yeah, nicely done. It's just a couple of things that I don't like about this kit. Like this, I didn't like. 2-piece barrels, I didn't like. But that's only minor things. And the last thing I did get with the kit was a giant poster, which I gone ahead and framed already, because I did have a sneak peek to find out what it was, because it come in a triangle box and I wasn't too sure what it was. So there you are, my friends. That picture you see there in the frame is what you get free. It doesn't come framed. I had to frame it myself. There is a little bit of glare over the front of the because it's brand new framing, so it is nice and clean. But this is the picture. It is A2 size. So yeah, as I say, it come in a triangle, long, slim box. I wasn't too sure what it was, so I had a sneak peek, and I realised it's the poster. I think you only get this if you're Airfix member. I don't think you get this from your normal hobby shop. I could be wrong on that, I don't know. So I had some frames already, and lucky enough I had an A3 size, but I didn't have an A2, so I've had to order this one, and this arrived today, so I quickly framed it up for filming the video. So this is a nice bonus. I do like that, and I did mention about the box art being a nice poster, and obviously we did get a poster, which thank you Airfix, I do like that, and it's framed. That's going to go up on the wall nicely. So there you are, folks, another beautiful kit from Airfix. There's some things I like and some things I don't, but we get that with all kit manufacturers these days. So yeah, if you feel free, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on what you think of the new Airfix 124 Spitfire, and I'll catch you later.